Indeed, it's pleasure to invite my fellow colleague activist, Yogen. I call him as Yogen. He's an activist, and also, he was psephologist, and still he doesn't want to identify himself as a psephologist. But I see that, that quest in him, and also his primary interest lies in the political science and social sciences in abroad. But he was affiliated with CSDS from 2014 to 2016. And he was also former member of University Grants Commission and National Advisory Council on Right to Education Act, which was constituted by Ministry of HRD, Government of India in 2010. And as I already mentioned, as a colleague, where we are working in the organization called, there's a much more recent organization which he has initiated, Bharat Jodo Abhiyan, which is a civil society group initiatives that, we work with all kinds of civil society groups to protect the constitutional values and the democratic institutions which are under severe threat in contemporary times. Well, he was also, if I take him back, where he was faculty in Punjab University, Chandigarh, and he was also a founder, convener of Lokniti Network at CSDS, and he was part of many political party initiatives like Aam Aadmi Party, and then later on Swaraj Abhiyan. To be very brief, so he was also worked with, he's still working with Prashant Bhushan, Anand Kumar, Ajit Jha, and many other, known socialists, and, as part of Swaraj Abhiyan initiative. And much more, and also he's very much part of the larger social movements which are being, initiated in contemporary times, and where Bharat Jodo Yatra and Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra is, being initiated by his interests. And of course, as a colleague, we are working together. And I request, maybe when Yogen speaks about, the on particular issue, he may also bring the activities of Bharat Jodo Abhiyan, and briefly, that would be really helpful. Thank you so much for asking me to introduce. I don't want to take much more time. That is the reason. Otherwise, it's no need to introduce him. But still, as a colleague, I feel very privileged to introduce him. Thank you so much for asking me.
Yeah, thank you, Sun Kumar. So I think without delay, I will hand over to Mr. Yogendra Yadav to go ahead. So, sir, we will have like this, 35 minutes talk, and then we will trace on some of the question and answer, because which are very important. And these are all activists who have joined us today. So every person is very important in understanding what they take it from this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, friends. Thank you thanks to the International Ambedkar Center for giving me this opportunity. And thanks, Professor Sukumar, for this very kind introduction. When Professor Sukumar said that there is this group, and forgive me, I did not know about the existence of this group. He introduced the group to me and said, "Would you like to speak?" And I jumped and I said, yes, that's the kind of group I have been waiting to speak to. Because while there are all kinds of groups, all kinds of Indian groups in the US, sadly, the fact is that many of such groups are part of the problem rather than part of the solution. They constitute part of the challenge, then part of the remedy that we need to meet the challenge. So the moment I heard about an Ambedkarite group in the US, I was so happy, and I thought I must speak to you. So thanks for this kind invitation. When I was told that, when I was asked about the subject, they said, would you like to speak on the challenge to democracy in India? I said, can we modify it a bit? I said, can we talk about challenge to the Republic of India? And that's where let me start, because what I see today is the challenge to the very existence of the Republic of India. Why do I talk of the Republic, not just of democracy? Because to my mind, we tend to forget when we look at our constitution, it mentions both the words, democratic republic. It does not simply call India a republic. It does not simply call India a democracy. It's a democratic republic. And I think, although it's a bit of an interlude, I think we tend to underestimate the contribution of Baba Sahib Ambedkar to the to modern Indian thought, to the building of modern India, because unfortunately in academia and in many other places, I see mostly Dr. Ambedkar's name is cited in speaking about caste injustice, in speaking about social injustice. But the larger contributions he made to the thinking about democracy, his contribution to political theory, not just in India, but globally, that's insufficiently understood. He was, to my mind, one of the few political philosophers who revived and underlined the idea of fraternity. While everyone speaks about liberty, equality, fraternity, fraternity is the forgotten sister of liberty and equality. Baba Sahib really brought it to the center of his thinking. His contribution to democratic thinking, democratic theory, is something that needs to be written about, because it is my belief that he was perhaps the only democratic theorist of India in the 20th century. It's not that others were not democratic; they were democratic, but somehow democracy was not at the core of their thinking. And they did not understand some of the critical things about democratic theory, namely how do political institutions shape social consequences. Dr. Ambedkar thought about it, and those are aspects of his thinking which are insufficiently understood. And one of those aspects which is insufficiently understood is his notion of republic. I'm not a scholar anymore, but I would really want some of us to excavate some of his remarks, some of his stray remarks in the last phase of his life on republic, on ancient Indian republics, on republicanism. And I would wish to draw your attention to the fact that in political science, in political theory, political philosophy in the last 20 years, there has been a revival of the idea of republicanism. And republicanism now is not seen merely as a formality, as many of you might recall. When we were in schools, we were taught that republican is simply a form of government where there is no hereditary ruler. So Britain is not a republic, India is a republic. Absence of hereditary ruler and head of the state being an elected person makes it republic. But that is not what republicanism is about. Republicanism is about seriously instituting a political community, with its shared beliefs, a political community of equal citizenship, where equality defines. So republicanism is a very radical idea. Republican democratic form or democratic republic is a very radical way of thinking about democracy, which is what Dr. Ambedkar instituted in our country, which is still not quite understood by political theorists or by Indian political scientists. But I'd let that interlude be and come back to my main theme. My main theme is that the challenge that we face today is not merely to democracy in India. That is, of course, under challenge. And to my mind, in many ways, Indian democracy is taking steps towards what we have witnessed in many other parts of the world, which is it is not becoming a straightforward dictatorship, because in 21st century, no one wants to be a straightforward dictator. That's unfashionable. In 21st century, the model is competitive authoritarianism. That is to say, those who institute dictatorship, they actually do not abolish elections. They hold elections. They hold elections regularly. Putin holds elections. Erdogan holds election. The dictator in Hungary, he holds elections. All of them hold elections. It is precisely by holding election at a regular interval, but ensuring that the outcome of election is kind of predetermined, that elections are held in conditions which are very unfree, unfair, and where there is no level playing ground. That is the 21st century model. And in that sense, Indian democracy is very much headed in that direction. But as I said, I see the present challenge being much more than that. The present challenge is to the very Republic of India. And what do I mean? Because Republic is not just democracy. Republic presumes a political community of shared values. What is being challenged today is the very existence of that republic. What is being challenged today is the very existence of that political community, which is a community of shared beliefs. Which are those shared beliefs? Those shared beliefs are the beliefs that are inscribed in the Constitution of India. I keep saying that the significance of Constitution of India is not merely that it happens to be a constitution. Every country has a constitution. Even dictatorships have a constitution. Pakistan has a constitution. What is so special about Indian constitution? What is special about Indian constitution is that it actually is a distilled version of India's encounter with modernity, India's encounter with colonial rule. All the values that India wanted to preserve from the past and all the values that it wanted to junk from the past, that debate has been settled. And in that sense, our constitution is not merely a legal document. The preamble to our constitution is much more than a legal document. So what is a challenge today is the very existence of a political community of shared values. It is not that in the last 75 years, those shared values were acted upon. Of course, there was a lot of hypocrisy. Of course, all those values were defied. But there is a difference between saying that I believe in those values, but I don't act on them. And on the other hand, saying I don't believe in those values at all. What we are witnessing today is actually the rise of a political regime which does not believe, even does not want to pay lip service to the key constitutional values that India is founded upon, and which actually wants to create. It's a very conscious attempt at creating a country, a political system, which is the very negation of all the key constitutional values embedded, written in the Constitution of India. It's a antithesis of all democratic institutions and constitutional values. That is what the real challenge is. The challenge is that the very foundational values of India are under challenge. And underlying those constitutional values is the fact of social transformation. Our constitution is based on a certain understanding of what kind of society we want to be and what we do not want to be. What is a challenge is that vision itself. To put it very simply, I do believe that the Chatur Varna order, the Varna order, is being brought from the back door. I do believe that there is a very serious attempt to dismantle the limited regime of social justice and affirmative action that we have built in the last 70 years. And in the economic front, I believe that while we've always been capitalist country, but we were capitalism with some discount, capitalism with some sense of shame, capitalism with some limits. All those limits, that shame and discount is being taken away, and we are turning into a brazen, crony capitalist country. So the current challenge is not merely a political challenge. It is a challenge which has a social aspect to it, which has an economic aspect to it. That is the challenge. So just to sum up what I've said, what we are witnessing is a challenge to the very existence of the Republic of India, to the foundational values of that republic, which are embedded in the Constitution, and to a challenge to the social order and economic order, which the Constitution had inaugurated, though never completed. That is, so all that is being sought to be reversed. The gains of anti-colonial struggle, the gains of Constitution, and the gains of the last 50, 70 years are being rolled back. That is the challenge. Therefore, when we look at 2024 election, I keep saying this is not an election to the Parliament of India. Technically speaking, it's an election to Lok Sabha, maybe 16th or 17th, whatever it is. But the real significance is not that. The real significance is that this election that if BJP wins this election, it would certainly mean an end to the constitutional democracy that we have seen in this country. It would almost certainly mean not an abrogation of the Constitution in formality. Formally, BJP will not do it. They will continue with the existing Constitution. But for all practical purposes, they will change the Constitution. They will do it through a constitutional amendment. They will never call it that we are changing the Constitution of India. They will do what Mrs. Gandhi did during the emergency. In the emergency, Mrs. Gandhi brought in what was called 42nd Amendment, which was de facto a rewriting of the Indian Constitution. This is exactly what they are going to do. They would, drop a few words from the preamble to the Constitution. Secularism will be dropped. Sanatana will be brought in. They will not call it Hindu. They will call it Sanatana. All these things would happen. Some of the rights and some of the fundamental rights will be diluted. Some of the provisions of judiciary will be diluted. Indian federalism, which is already quite centralized, will be centralized further. And many of the safeguards for socially deprived groups will be very finely tweaked, and small provisions will be inserted for their negation. That's the kind of things that we expect to happen. So the moment when the Constitution could be challenged and upturned is not far away. It is very much upon us. And that is why I say that we should not look at 2024 election as an election which is an election to Lok Sabha. At least we should approach it as if it's an election to the Constituent Assembly of India, although it is technically not. But we know for sure that this is how they would use the outcome of this election to virtually rewrite the Constitution of India. Now, many of my friends might say, but they don't have a 2/3 majority. Even if they get majority in Lok Sabha, they don't have a 2/3 majority in Rajya Sabha. All that is correct, my friends. But history tells us that when political power is used, it is used precisely by changing the rules of the game. We have already witnessed that 140 members of parliament could be thrown out of the parliament. So if the BJP does not enjoy 2/3 majority in Rajya Sabha, it doesn't matter. All that they have to do is to throw out 40 MPs from Rajya Sabha for 1 week, which they will by some pretext or the other. And in that process, in that period, the laws will be passed, constitutional amendment will be passed. So all I want to say is this is very much a real possibility that we are looking at. And therefore, this is the moment for us to put in all our energy to prevent this from happening. This is, we really are, we really stand at the brink where the challenge is very much real. What would it mean for us to do? What should we do? Are some of the things that I would wish to speak about. Encouraged by what Professor Sukumar said, that you should also say, what is it that we are doing? What can be done? Now, when I say that, we are at such a critical moment, the natural question is, so what do you think is going to happen? Many friends ask me because I used to do psephology, as Professor Sukumar told you. And I tell every friend, this is not the moment to ask that question. We should ask this question about weather. We should say, is it going to rain tomorrow? Is it going to snow in your part where you live? Those are valid questions because whether I like it or not, it will snow. If it has to snow, it will snow. My liking or my effort is not going to make a difference. But in the world of politics, in the world of human affairs, outcomes will be what we desire them to be, what we work towards. So I say to my friends mostly, let us not speculate, let us not forecast. Our job is not to forecast the future. Our job is to create the future. Our job is to intervene. Baba Sahib did not sit in 1930 and say, all right, what is going to happen when India becomes independent? He said, I will make sure that these things do not happen. I will intervene. That's what our role is today. So what can be done? There are two or three fronts on which something needs to be done. We know the challenge. We know the challenger. We know that BJP, third term for the BJP would mean all the consequences that we are talking about. And in a group like this, I need not say that the real issue is not Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi is simply the mask for something deeper, which is not just the BJP, which is RSS and the BJP. There is an ideology behind it. And we are facing the challenge of political hegemony. We confront a deep hegemony. And I do not wish to pretend for a moment that if you can defeat BJP in 2024, all the problems would be over. No. We are facing a long-term intellectual political challenge. No matter what the result of 2024 is, we shall have to fight this over the next generation, next 20, 30, 40 years. That's a challenge. But that's a long-term challenge. In the long term, the challenge is to build a counter hegemony. The challenge is to build a force of resistance. The challenge is to create politics that would create new ideas, that would create new institutions, that would do what the RSS has done in 95 years, now nearly 100 years. So what the RSS has done in the 100 years is something you and I have to do it in the next 10 or 15 years. That is the challenge. But I will not today speak much about the challenge, in the long-term challenge, next 10, 15 years. I'll take the next 5-7 minutes to talk about the challenge of the next 50 days, because the elections are on us. Today is the 6th, and the first phase of election is only less than 2 weeks away. That's the 19th. What can be done? And the last phase of election is about 50 days away from today. What can be done? Professor Sukumar and I are part of an initiative called Bharat Jodo Abhiyan. Bharat Jodo Abhiyan began as an initiative at the end of the first Bharat Jodo Yatra that was organized by the Congress party, which was led by Rahul Gandhi. But this initiative has nothing to do with either Rahul Gandhi or Congress party. Many of us had joined this yatra. We said, here is an opportunity in a situation which appears to be a situation of hopelessness. This yatra has given us hope, so let us join it. So we, on behalf of civil society organizations, social movements, various movement groups, we joined the yatra without joining the Congress party. And at the end of the yatra, we said those of us who had joined the yatra, we should come together, we should create an initiative. So Bharat Jodo Abhiyan was born out of that attempt to bring together all the people's movements, people's groups, civil society groups, which are not affiliated to any political party, which are wedded to the constitutional values and democratic ideals and institutions, and all those who want to save the republic. Let's all come together. So we have been working now. We were formed on the 6th of February. And now for more than a year, we have been working together, gathering forces, gathering friends from across the spectrum, and working towards 2024. And we have now reached the last stage of our work. What have we done? We are working on three things simultaneously. One was an attempt to forge unity among political parties and social movements, which are wedded to the constitution. So, for example, in Maharashtra, our effort was and has been to ensure that Bahujan Vanchit Aghadi also joins the India coalition, because we want all such forces to come together to work together. So in different places, we tried to ensure that there is better coordination. That was the first part of our work. Better coordination among political parties and better coordination between political parties and social movements and movement groups on the other hand. The second part of our work has been on communication. We realize that much of the strength, much of the power that the current regime has derives from its extraordinary control over communication. Their control over media, which they almost fully control, their control over even social media, their control over influencers, everything. And their ability to disseminate messages of hate and lies every morning. So we thought we would intervene with communication. We have a small team in Hindi. We have colleagues in Kannada, colleagues in Marathi, colleagues in Bengali. And we create material that combats BJP's lies, BJP RSS lies. Every day, our team creates videos, and we also select and source, curate things picked up from other sources. We do it without any label. We do it without any brand names, so that anyone can use it. Anyone can put their brand name on it and use it, because the purpose is to allow widest possible dissemination of what we are doing. So that's our second effort, to create communication and to combat, to create volunteers who would combat their communication. So we create, we disseminate. The third part of our work is what we call TPC, Targeted Parliamentary Constituencies. Throughout the country, we have identified about 120 constituencies, which we believe are marginal, where BJP can be defeated with some effort, or where BJP was defeated last time, but can bounce back. So these are constituencies where we focus our work. We have created local teams. Those teams go there, are already stationed. I believe in more than 80 constituencies, the teams are already stationed. They're already working. They start their work with the voters list and restoring names from voters list that BJP may have got removed, inserting names that need to be inserted back or to be introduced. So from voters list to the polling day, we would have our team, small teams. Our team is not going to do the main campaign. The main campaign has to be done by the party and by the candidate. But we provide them specialized support. We provide them some kind of support that they need. Mostly opposition parties are very poor with their technical work. They are not so smart with their election management. So we are trying to support them in all these things. So these are three kinds of things that we are doing. We know that our strength, our resources are no match for big political parties. But we know that we have one strength which they don't, which is we are working without any self-interest. When our volunteers go to the constituency and say, all my life I have opposed Congress, all my life I have opposed Samajwadi Party, but today I'm coming to ask votes for them. I'm not joining them. I'm not a part of that party. But there's something larger at stake. This has a resonance that the political party workers' appeal does not have. Because people suspect that if you come to ask for vote, you must be a friend of the candidate or you must be a part of the party. When you are not and still ask for vote or work for them, it provides you a greater moral appeal, a credibility, which is normally missing. So that is what we are working towards. And let me conclude by saying, what is it that you can do sitting where you do? First, you can all begin by connecting Bharat Jodo Abhiyan to the groups that you are connected to in India. Because there is all kinds of networks exist. Those networks can be activated. Professor Sukumar is here and he is coordinating that bit in any case at our end. So please feel free to connect him to that. Second, we do need resources. We do not take any money from any of political parties. We work with very little resources. And any of you who can give us, who can support Bharat Jodo Abhiyan, as long as you are a citizen of India. We cannot take money from anyone who is not a citizen of India. But if you can give or encourage any citizen of India to support us, you can do that. Three, in the long run, as I said, it's an intellectual political battle. In the long run, we have to win back the values of the Constitution of India and make it acceptable, make it attractive for the new generation. That's a long-term intellectual task, which we have to do. And one of the tasks, as I said right in the beginning, is to revive or in essence, resurrect the idea of republicanism, which is embedded in the Indian Constitution, but which has never been taken seriously. And those are the kinds of things you can do. And my sense is that if we start this work now, the fact is that ordinary people, there are so many pain points of ordinary people that are waiting to be touched. I should just end by making one special reference, which I should have made earlier, which is that, one of the impacts of Bharat Jodo Yatra has been that when the second Yatra took place, it was called Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra by the Congress Party. And for the first time, the theme of social justice became the principle, the central, the flagship idea. After a long time, you would have seen, I mean, in a sense, for the first time, Congress party has officially taken up the idea of caste census, the idea of social justice, which takes caste seriously, annihilation of caste seriously. Congress's manifesto has committed itself to these things, and manifesto of other opposition parties, other India opposition parties, is also veering towards the same. So the final thought that I want to end this with is this, that our republic is under threat, under challenge, because the ruling class and the ruling caste, the rulers of the country for the last 75 years, have colluded with the dismantling of our republic. They are no longer interested in saving the democracy. They are no longer interested in saving this republic. They have betrayed this republic. And the republic can only be saved by those who have lived on the margins and those who have seen the Constitution of India as a document of liberation. They have to come forward and defend this republic, defend this constitution from this onslaught. And I'm so very confident that all of you sitting wherever you are will be a partner in this journey, that we shall all struggle and we shall all win. Thank you. And my apologies if I've taken longer than I needed to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think you have spoken wonderful on the current situations and the challenges. And definitely this is a very critical time for all Indians to save the democracy, to save the republic state. I would like to ask Mr. Sukumar to add few words to it, and then we will open for the question and answers.
No, not much, but the only thing is that, since we are working on we are all working, in fact, I know I have been part of our group for whenever it has been started. And this initiative has been particularly to connecting the dots. And then, as Yogen rightly said, that, how do we really protect the constitutional values and what Babasaheb Ambedkar has, visualized. And he predicted that, if Hinduism comes into the power, and the society will be much more chaos, and there would be all kinds of traumatic situation, what we are witnessing today. So the only request on behalf of Bharat Jodo Abhiyan and also on behalf of our social justice groups across the country, what I request is that let us connect, let us work together, whichever the form which we can work. And the battle is not only 2024, and it is much more longer, 2029 or maybe beyond that. Some of us might be alive, some of us might not be. But the only point which I would like to tell to all our friends who are here is that the next generation should not question us, that the 75 years of constitutional privileges which you people have enjoyed, but you left nothing to us when so therefore they should not curse us, and therefore we need to stand and let us fight back and let us give a bright future for the next coming generations of this country. I stop here, and Jai Bhim, thanks for asking me to just intervene, and I would be coordinating with whatever our group people. I look forward for a different kind of help. We literally look for certain help from friends where we are working, as Yogen as mentioned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Sukumar, for adding those kind words. I think that Josh, that determination, what you are basically showing it's giving a lot of hopes to our people for sure. Many people always try to say that, hey, if there is no second Babasaheb comes up, then there is no revolution is going to happen. But I'm pretty confident that there are people like you, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, and many more in this arena who are trying their best to conquer what we really want to conquer. So with that, and with on behalf of the Ambedkar International Center USA, I would sincerely like to thank you and Mr. Yogendra Yadav for giving the current thoughts, and it is going to give us enlightenment in terms of what our responsibilities towards the community. And I'm pretty confident that we are here today and we are going to push Ambedkar's missions in that order. So with that, I'm going to open up for a few questions. I know that there are many questions we have in our mind. So Mr. Sanjay Kumar, you would like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yogendra sir. We all your fan. We have been hearing you from, decade. It has been. So we are all good, big fan of you. My question to you is, we can clearly see the country has a division in thought, ideology. One is pro BJP, RSS, and another one is against. Regardless, whatever effort you put it in, we put it in to make the guys who are in pro, to bring them this side, change their ideology. It's become exceptional that in very exceptional case we will be able to do that. So what is your thought to bring that to this side? I see that not even them, but their generation also going in the same direction. They are becoming more fundamentalist, pro RSS kind thought, against the minority, against the pro Sanatani. So what is your thought on it? How to bring them back? Even their next generation, how we can bring them back? I know that there's an answer that education can bring them, but I'm not fully, in agreement that education can bring them back. Okay, that's a very straightforward question. Thanks.
I agree with you, Sanjay Bhai, that we should not put our faith in formal education. Unfortunately, formal education and degrees do not give you political understanding. In fact, those with formal education are part of the problem. People with less formal education are sometimes less dangerous. It is those who go to university, especially the upper caste, upper class elite of India, which has all the educational privileges, has become such a, not just a supporter, but they have become ideologues. They have become the champions of this politics of hatred and lies. So I agree that just formal education is not an answer. Greater education is not going to make India a more just place. In fact, people who can speak English, those who go to IITs and IIMs, they are the worst defenders of the idea of merit devoid of any social content come from these people. So yes, action is not as bleak as you might think. Please remember, we do not live in a country where people with social disadvantages are placed like the blacks are placed in the US because of one simple demographic difference. In the US, the blacks or those who are racial minorities, they are about less than 20% of the population, all of them put together. At the most, if you, by extended definition, less than a quarter of the population. In India, it's exactly the other way around. Those with social disadvantages, the depressed classes, as they were called at one point in our history, they are clearly more than 3/4 of our population. So please remember, we represent the majority. The word Bahujan is therefore an important word to remember. We represent, we can speak. We do not only need to change the heart of the privileged, which we need to. We should always try to convince every single person, irrespective of where they were born. But we also we need basically to speak to an overwhelming majority. The tragedy is not that those who enjoy social privileges have now converted completely to BJP. to my mind, the real tragedy is that those who are underprivileged, Dalits, Adivasis, Bahujan, OBCs, the Pasmandas among Muslims, many of them have also converted to BJP's ideology, and there is not enough counter. So, to my mind, this is the as they say, the lowest hanging fruit. Those who come from these background and yet who are caught in this ideology of hatred, they should be the first constituency to appeal to. It is possible. We can do it. But we need to revive ideology. We need to train people. We need to speak to them. When I was a student, it was quite common for me to go to ideological camps. It was quite common for us to discuss politics outside classrooms. That culture has to be revived, even if classrooms are not open to us, even if universities are not open to us. Well, YouTube is open to us, internet is open to us. So we have to access these things and create a culture of ideological discussions and to give political education. So I do not put my faith in formal education, but I put my faith in political education. If we do so, there is absolutely no reason why we should not be able to get an overwhelming proportion of Indians to support us, because after all, we represent the interest of an overwhelming number of Indian citizens. We represent the values which are the deepest civilizational values, and we represent the Constitution of India. So we really have no reason to feel despondent.
Perfect. I think that's a very important point, what you just said. And even Dr. Ambedkar, when he wrote a constitution for Samta Sainik Dal, a revolutionary organization he started in 1927, he had said that the students, those who will groom for the future of nation, should know the political and the social angle of the society. And I think we all, like all Ambedkar followers, have failed to understand that what he has said and what has to be implemented. But with that, I think let's go to the next question. Lakshman, do you want to speak? Lakshman, you have raised the hand.
Yes. Hi, sir. This is my first time I'm attending this meeting. Nice to see you. Great personality. Our Bahujan intellectual community's fear and worry is, do we really see a committed leader from our communities? Because it's really hurting us as an intellectual community. Recently, we see an politician who is from our Bahujan communities and who changed his thought process, and that hurts everybody. Okay, so do you really think a leader from our communities like Ambedkar, Periyar, Phule, kind of leader is there or is becoming or will be there? Thank you.
It's a good question. It's a difficult question. It's an important question, and I can understand why anyone would wish to ask this. It's a difficult question, not only because it's difficult to answer, because it's difficult to understand. I believe that, yes, leaders create movements, but movements also create leaders. There can be some exceptional people like Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who were ahead of their times, who were not created by any movement, but who actually then created a movement. These are historic figures. I personally do believe, although in this group it may not be a view shared by everyone, that Mahatma Gandhi was also one of those exceptional individuals who actually created movements, who were not simply created by some movement. such individuals come once in a while. And the movement of history does not depend on constant existence of individuals of such exceptional merit all the time. But there is no dearth of leadership among Dalit and Bahujan communities. As I roam around the country, I find, especially in the Dalit community, I find a new generation of leaders. So I'll be frank with you and do a tiny dissection of what I think of the leadership. The Adivasi leadership, there is a churning which has begun in the Adivasi leadership for the first time in the last 5-7 years. So in a sense, the Kashiram moment in Adivasi politics has just begun. The difficulty in Adivasi politics is that it is very hard to find leaders whose leadership extends beyond one community. So you would have a great Adivasi leader among the Bhils, but he may not be the leader of Minas. Someone who's the leader of Bhils and Minas may not be known by Santals or Raons, and in the Northeast, etc. So there is no pan-India Adivasi leadership. In the case of OBC, the problem is dual. A, because most OBC politics is very narrowly structured around one caste. And B, most OBC leaders are not schooled in the ideology of social justice and are therefore incapable of connecting to Dalits and Adivasis. As a matter of fact, many of the OBC leaders actually become instruments for perpetuating injustice against Dalits in their own area. So, as you know, many of the OBC communities themselves become instrumental to exploitation of an oppression against Dalits. I see a little more hope in the Dalit leadership in the country today. And that's something I've been saying for some time now. Among Dalit politics, largely because of the influence of Dr. Ambedkar, partly also in North India because of the rise of the Bahujan Samaj Party, from which I do not expect very much right now. But because of the work that it has put in earlier, there is an exceptional kind of leadership which is coming up. And it is possible that some of these new generation Dalit leaders could become leaders not only for Dalits, but for the entire Bahujan bloc. That is to say, Dalits could take up the leadership of SC, ST, OBC. That's a historic possibility and a historic responsibility that Dalit political leadership may have to take. Now, do we wait for such leaders? I don't think we need to wait. I mean, when I move around the country, I find some of these leaders of absolutely exceptional talent who are there. We need to recognize, we need to support. And for people like you sitting abroad, one of the things that you can do is to actually support such leadership that already does exist and try to ensure that they end up that they get the support when they need it most, that they get noticed, that they get recognition. These are things we can do. But believe me, new leadership is indeed coming up.
I think that's the right thing to look at. We have 2 raised hands and 1 question under the chat box. I know the time is almost close to an hour, but we will quickly go through these 3 things and then we will conclude. So, Revat Kumar Borkar, do you want to speak?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Professor Revat Kumar Borkar. I'm a principal at Government Engineering College, Nagpur. and I'm a student of IIT Bombay. I heard Yogendra ji and personally met in 2002 something when he is invited in IIT Bombay. And I am associated with Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar National Institute of Engineers, that known as BANAI. My question and Yogendra Yadav was putting that we have to concentrate on these 50 days because the elections are due, and the process of democracy or the tool which turn everything. And we should equality in political way, social way, and economical way. Unless and until we have the members of the parliament or the majority, you cannot establish the real kind of the political equality, because EVM and all the other things are now again the challenge, and the challenge before our community to establish social and the political, social and the economical equality. So it's not only to have these 50 days, but years to come, this struggle is there. And therefore, Yogendra Yadav was telling that it's not to limited only for these 50 days, but years to come, we have to work on. So my appeal is that challenge those who are the elite people, but the challenge is those who are called as a SC, ST people, the lot of churning is required, and the challenge before us also. So how this can be dealt? That is my question.
Mr. Yogendra?
A lot of churning is already taking place, and we need to be with the churning. We need to recognize this churning. We need to respect this churning. I'll give you one small example. In Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Madhya Pradesh, there is Bhil community, which crosses all these three states. Within this Bhil community, Sukumar Bhai knows it. For the last 6-7 years, there is a new political awakening. In a sense, the Kanshiram movement has come in Adivasi politics of this area. The young Adivasi activists have started rejecting the older leadership of Congress and the BJP. They have they are coming up, they are creating their own systems, they are creating their own political leadership. So the churning is already taking place. We need to just respect that churning and to flow with it, to help it, to recognize it, to legitimize it. That is our role. And one quick point that your remark enables me to make, which I had forgotten and I should have made earlier, is that one of the challenges of this election is that the very fairness of the democratic process, electoral process, is under question. The manner in which the election commission is behaving, the manner in which the government is going all out, makes it quite clear that this is going to be the least free and fair election in the history of India. And we do not know if there would be any further manipulation by way of manipulation of the EVM or anything of that kind. Nothing can be ruled out. So that is an additional challenge that we need to be alert to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Kumar Natta, you want to go next?
Yes, brother. Thank you, Yogendra sir and Professor Saab for the message and your great efforts. I have just one question. Yogendra sir, you pointed out about the deficiencies in our education system and Bahujan community folks coming out of higher learning institutions. There is a movement or effort in southern states about English language as medium of teaching, and in, online one of the documents shows that you oppose English language as a medium of teaching, considering that communication is critical for sharing ideas and exposing political issues. Would like to understand your thoughts.
Thank you. You correctly reported my views on this subject. Yes, I'm absolutely opposed to English as a medium of instruction. Mind you, see, in the entire discussion in India, people make an elementary distinction that I don't expect educated people not to make. And the distinction is between teaching English as a language and teaching English as a medium and using English as a medium for teaching history, geography, science, mathematics, or whatever. While I have suggested, and I've endorsed the idea that every Indian child should be exposed to English language. Every Indian child should be taught how to use English language. They should have English language proficiency. For that, we do not need to force them to learn history, geography, mathematics, and science in English language. They can learn English I can give you my own example. I went to a Hindi medium school all my life. I learned English and I'm speaking English with you, and I'm sure this would be true of many of the colleagues present in today's meeting. I learned English as a language, but I learned my history, geography, science, and maths in Hindi language. The reason why I'm opposed to it is this, that this actually, that pedagogy all over the world, please look up any discussion on serious pedagogy or any discussion on cognitive psychology or linguistic psychology. And please show me one person, any serious person on pedagogy, who says that a child should be educated in a language other than mother tongue. There is none. Everyone agrees that the best way to educate a child is to educate them through their mother tongue or a language as close to their mother tongue as is practically feasible. So the formula that every pedagogue in this country has always agreed upon, and this has nothing to do with BJP or anything, this has always been a consensus, that in the primary school, a child should be taught, the medium of instruction should be mother tongue, that is to say, not Hindi, but Bhojpuri, Maithili, Awadhi, and so on. In the middle school, they should shift to a model language like Hindi or Kannada or whatever. And in the later research stage, they may be required to use English to express themselves. But throughout this period, they should be taught English as a language. So I would simply say, please maintain this distinction, which is elementary distinction, between learning English as a language and using English as a medium of instruction for every other discipline. Once we learn to make this distinction, we would see the point of what I'm saying, and no communication would be hampered at all by this. And please also remember, our languages like Telugu, languages like Tamil, languages like Bengali, are almost as big as French, as Italian, as English. Why not?
Just a quick follow-up, sir. Does your opinion, like statistical data, would it support your view when we look at civil services or premier institute admissions? It appears that English medium folks fare well compared to native language medium. I'm just wondering, sir. Thank you.
Sir, that is I'm glad you asked this follow-up. That is not the problem of those students. That is the problem of the examination system, sir. That is an artifact of the kind of examination system you designed. In civil services, if you make it mandatory for people to write one essay in a language other than English and give 200 marks to that, you can see what would happen from next year onwards. So these are complete artifacts of power. English-speaking people who are the ruling class of this country have designed a system in order to favor their own children. That cannot, so statistical evidence I can request you to read anything on cognitive psychology, anything on child education learning, anything on early education, anything of that kind. And I'm fairly sure that everything confirms what I'm saying. The examinations and jobs that you are mentioning, all these are things we have created. It has nothing to do with knowledge. It has everything to do with the system that the elite has designed in order to keep the underprivileged people out. That needs to be changed and challenged rather than us changing children's education in order to suit an examination that we have designed. Why not change the examination?
I think those are the very critical pointers, and we will basically definitely ponder on that. We will go to the last question. Nilesh from California has asked, given the BJP's welfare program and infrastructure initiatives, low-income families joining BJP is inevitable. What is the counter from your side?
First thing for all of us to remember is that BJP's so-called welfare programs are actually not BJP's programs. Please remember, you travel, last 2 days I've been traveling in Uttar Pradesh. Everyone says, BJP ne ration de diya, Modi ji ne ration de diya. The trouble is that this Congress party cannot even come up and say, look, it all is a result of National Food Security Act, which was passed by the UPA. It's not a gift of the BJP. All that the BJP did was, and mind you, this was not implemented only by BJP. The implementation had started during the UPA period. That all that the BJP did was that it publicized so what they did was the only BJP contribution to the food, the rations thing, which is the biggest welfare program in the country right now. BJP's contribution was that the UPA Act said that wheat would be available for 2 rupees a kg and rice would be available for 3 rupees a kg. BJP said it will be available free for COVID period, which has now been extended by another 6 months. So that's all. So it is the idea that BJP has started some very new, big, radical welfare programs in the country. It's actually factually not true. It is just a lot of propaganda. And what the BJP has done, more than that, and for that BJP must get the credit for being innovative, that they have put Mr. Modi's photograph on every single thing. Everything that used to be called Government of India is now called Modi. That, remember, the largest employment program in this country was initially simply called Narega. Only 2-3 years later, it was called Manrega. But even then, it is Mahatma Gandhi. It is not some Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi program. So what has happened with BJP is that they have put a political stamp on every governmental program, and they have also illegally created directories of these beneficiaries and reached out to them separately and politically to say, all right, we gave it to you, now you give us votes. So this quid pro quo is something that BJP has done. Yes, that does pose a challenge to us. We need to come up with ways of countering them. And ways of countering would be partly to point out that, look, these are not things started by the BJP, that the BJP's performance on this is not extraordinarily better than other governments. The differences are not between BJP and other parties. The differences are usually between India. Most of these programs work better. In North India, most of these programs don't work that well. Those are the real differences in India, not between BJP and other parties. So first is to come up with the truth. Second, of course, the opposition parties now need to come up with more attractive schemes. And I personally am quite happy with some of the schemes that the Congress party has announced recently, the 5 guarantees that they have unveiled today. These are pretty serious stuff, and which can be used to counter the BJP. But in the last instance, the work of countering has to be done by an organization. The problem is that most of the opposition parties don't have any organization on the ground to take on the BJP's might. That is the real problem.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for demystifying the facts and complexities, what people are perceiving as of today. And your pointers and thoughts are definitely going to help us to see the right picture. With that, we are at the end of our sessions. I sincerely thank you and Professor Sukumar for coming onto the platform and sharing your thoughts. With that, I would like to invite Mr. Anil Wagde, who is AIC spokesperson and who has been instrumental in connecting the global Ambedkarites and driving the anti-caste movement in USA as well as in India for concluding the today's talk. Mr. Anil Wagde.
Thank you, Takshat. Jai Bhim, Yogendra Yadav ji. Thank you very much
Jai
for
Bhim.
your Jai Bhim. Thank you very much for your delightful speech, covering a lot of aspects. But before I go there, I would like to thank N. Sukumar, who connected us with you. He is a professor of political science in Delhi University. He is a AIC member. He has authored a book on titled "Caste Discrimination and Exclusion in Indian Universities: A Critical Reflection." I myself work in non-implementation of a PhD reservation in IIMs. We have filed public interest litigation. Given the legal system that we have in this country, it is kind of going very slow. But thank you very much. Your speech, like I said, covered a lot of points, and it's a little difficult to kind of summarize. It's better for people to go through the speech, but just nonetheless, you said Constitution is a document that defines how the ideal society should function, talks about equality, fraternity, the provisions of affirmative action, socialism, to take care of people at the bottom of the pyramid, so to say. Whereas the forces, the caste supremacist forces, the elitist, the privileged people, and the amalgamation of all of that, the way it has kind of come together in the current BJP regime, the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid are really, really suffering in that sense. People feel that the constitution will be changed. It may not be, like you said, it may not become a Hindu Rashtra, but it may be called a Sanatana Rashtra. And then we are looking at kind of back entry of the Manusmriti, from where we have kind of escaped with Baba Saheb's effort. Now, like the caste supremacist forces have come together. The problem some of us feel, and I'm slightly deviating from summarizing the speech to some of the issues that as a Dalit community we have. Dr. Ambedkar was also kind of called, in today's terminology, a B team of British Raj, the then British Raj. In today's parlance, the Dalit parties, let it be BSP or Vanchit, are called the B team of BJP. While we understand our responsibility to defeat these casteist, elitist, supremacist forces, while we understand the responsibility, what is the Congress has done? Congress has ruled this country for such a long time, and today when we look at their manifesto, it is talking about they will do the caste survey in the country. Good initiative, but the caste survey was done by Shri Kaka Kalelkar, but was not implemented by BJP, by Congress for all these years. It took VP Singh to implement Mandal Commission report and bring the justice to the OPCs. When we look at, they are talking about in EWS, economically weaker section, which prohibits Dalits, SC, ST, OBC to participate in the EWS quota, whereas 90% of the SC, ST, OBCs are poor and qualify for the EWS. When this bill was brought in, what was Congress doing? Why Congress didn't really oppose the exclusion of SC, ST, OBC from EWS? So when we look at some of these things, it appears and I'm kind of, this is a little agonizing, and I'm really, I think I represent Dalits here by and large. Congress and BJP are the two sides of the same coin, albeit Congress is a little lower, if not truly secular, at least they pretend to be secular, and it has been good. I'm not trying to equate exactly BJP with Congress, but some of these challenges, how do we reconcile? Today, if we say, let's not vote for Vanchit in Maharashtra, let's not vote for BSP in UP, and let's defeat BJP, vote Congress. Tomorrow, when we go again for the political bargaining, we have nothing to show. Our vote share has kind of dissolved, dissipated under the Congress. So those are some of the thoughts that I just wanted to, and of course, if you want to say a few things, certainly, since it's not a summary. For Dalits, while political things are important, what is important is social justice. And like you said, the Congress has now changed its name to Bharat Jodo Yatra. Social, religious, education still takes the priority for the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. The way capitalist forces, the way privatization of education, etc., is happening, we really need the Congress to really look at people. Otherwise, again, it's the same set of Brahminical forces, 3% of the Brahmin people, but 70-80% they will be in the administration. They do not have the understanding of what people at the bottom of the pyramid suffer. So those are some of the thoughts, and we feel, while we hear you, obviously, and we ourselves are aware, and we need to defeat BJP, but this is our angst that I wanted to kind of voice it over. If you, sir, since I kind of deviated from summarizing, if you would like to kind of say a few things to that, that will be great.
I mean, these are absolutely legitimate concerns and anxieties which most of our friends have. And I fully understand these concerns. I have myself had this. As many of you know, I have been one of the biggest critics of the Congress party, and been public critic of the Congress party, and continue to be critic in so many ways. So I may not add very much. I will just point out 2 or 3 things. One is that it is not a question of political versus social. No, sir, there I disagree with you. It is not that I'm asking today for us to focus on political, and someone like you would say, no, but let us sort the social thing first. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that what appears to be a political challenge is actually a social challenge. What appears to be dismantling of our democracy is actually bringing from the back door a caste Hindu order, Varna order. So in that sense, the challenge is very much social challenge. So the parallel with the colonial rule in Baba Sahib is not correct in that sense. More clear, what I said really, when I call it the challenge to the republic, it is very much challenge to that ideal of our constitution, which is about social justice, which is about challenge to the caste order. And I'm saying in very blunt terms, something that you have also mentioned, that what we are witnessing is the return of caste supremacy ideology through political instruments. Instruments are political, but the challenge is social. So therefore, you, I'm sure, will not say, let us wait, let us sort the social thing first and then come to political, because that is, the political challenge is about bringing back the caste supremacist ideology. So you and I cannot have 2 different priorities on this issue. Second, about the Congress. I think Congress, much of what you said about Congress is true. And Congress has been punished for it. My secular friends point out all other problems of Congress party, and I say, they've been thrown out of power, they've been punished once, they've been punished twice. They should probably be punished 10 more times, as long as we benefit from it. If it is in our interest that Congress should be punished for 50 years, let us punish it for 50 years. The difficulty is, if that means BJP coming back to power, then I have a problem, and I'm sure you also have a problem. About BSP and about Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi, these are specific strategic questions that we can discuss at some other point. If anyone is convinced that strengthening of BSP in today's context, given what Mayawati ji stands for, given the stand that she takes, given the kind of candidate she puts up, if someone believes that it would strengthen Bahujan forces in the country, then of course we should strengthen BSP. But if that is our opinion and assessment, whether that is a correct assessment or not, that's something we can debate and discuss. The same applies to Prakash Ambedkar, who happens to be a very good friend of mine. But their politics and what they do, etc. I mean, we should have a frank discussion at some point. This is not probably the forum for that. The final thing I would wish to say on that is, political parties in the last instance are like signboards on a big shopping mall. The signboard remains the same. Owners change, character changes. It's like newspaper. The masthead remains the same. The owners change, their ideology change, the news content change, editorial policy changes, and everything. Please remember, since we are in the US, some of you are in the US, please remember, it is the Republican Party, which was the progressive party during the anti-slavery movement. And it is the Democratic Party, which was the regressive party. And today the situation is exactly the other way around. So parties are like mastheads. Let's not get stuck on the masthead. Let's look at I would not go by the masthead of a newspaper. I would actually read their editorial policy and their news policy. The same applies to Congress Party. The same applies to BSP. The same applies to them. Masthead, yes, but let's look at their content. And about Congress, I think in the present situation, something indeed is seriously changing in Congress Party when it comes to the issue of affirmative action, social justice, and caste. We don't need to have a debate right now, but please remember and remind me, when was the last time any mainstream leader in this country from any political party had spoken about the caste issue from public rallies, not in one rally, not in one speech, but in probably 50 speeches in the last 50 days. Straight away saying, how many SC/ST OBCs there are in the top bureaucracy, how many SC/ST OBC in judiciary, how many SC/ST OBC in the private sector, in this and that. I do not remember even VP Singh did not speak this language. People like you and me have to constantly monitor the content and not be stuck on the label. That's my understanding.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yogendra Yadav ji. This was wonderful 1.5 hours spent. Thank you for the participants who have been patiently listening. Like Sukumar had recommended Professor Yogendra Yadav ji, if you have some recommendations to call on the speaker series, please reach out to any of us. Thank you very much, and let's defeat BJP. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil Bhai. Thank you.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim.